Hey guys, welcome to BricksDaily Live. Today we are going to do a very quick video for you guys. We're actually going to be responding to Chris's comment on our last video where he asked if we can show more of the post-processing with special effects, i.e. lightsabers, blaster fires, and lens flares. We can do that. Let's get started. Okay guys, like I said, we are answering Chris's comment on our last video where he wants us to show more of the post-processing featuring some lightsaber, how we might do lightsabers, blaster fires, and maybe adding in some lens flares and stuff. So with today being Force Friday 2, we figured it might be a good theme for us to tie in with Star Wars. Obviously also because Chris wants to show some lightsabers and stuff like that. So what we have is I'm going to shoot Darth Vader with two of my favorite minifigures, which are the LEGO Stormtroopers. And what we have is this little setup here. We have a limited time today, so I went ahead and I did the setup already. But what you can see here is how I set it up. And one of the things I did was I actually separated the arms, and I used some of that blue tack that I used in pretty much every single photo that I take to get the items where I want them and stuff. It works pretty good. You do have to be careful. Sometimes it can not hold the best, so you just gotta really make sure stuff is good. Right now I think everything's pretty good. And what I did is I just brought it up so the arm is flailed out a little bit more, and this arm here is back, just to give it a little bit more depth. Now this here is just something that I use a lot of times when I'm shooting Legos. And what I do is I have this, and I can actually extend it with some different Lego lengths and stuff. And what that does is it gets the subjects up off the table. That way I can shoot coming up a little bit more if I want. And it tends to work out a little bit better, I think. So, and also I can change some angles and stuff like that. And also I can take this off and attach a guy directly to it. It just helps out at times. And you know, it's Lego, so it's good and sturdy and stuff like that. So one of the things that we'll be doing is also shooting again with we're using a Nikon D50. As I've said before in the description, I know this is an old camera, but it works. And what's great about, if a camera works, why switch it out? So I'm also shooting with the Nikon AFS micro 85mm and stuff. So I'm actually going to be setting this up on a tripod today, and I'm using this because it will automatically get me in a little bit closer to the subject. Whereas I don't want to, on this, I don't want to have to manually move in since I'm shooting with prime lenses when I do most of my macro toy photography. It's a great lens and everything. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the photography and see what we can do. Okay guys, since today we actually have a limited amount of time for this, I went ahead and set up some of the lighting and everything the way I wanted. So what we'll do is see about getting some of the angles and everything. I'll move one of the lights here so you can kind of see what I'm using. I do have the black backdrop like I normally use for a lot of my shots. And I have a top key light to kind of light up the top and just get those guys in here. And I'm using a light here. Now, one of the things with shooting this is, let me slide this over so you guys can, looking at it here, because we have Darth Vader and 2 stormtroopers, the lighting can be a little bit trickier, especially with Darth Vader. He tends to, the light doesn't reflect off of him too much, and with the stormtroopers being white, you have to be careful not to blow out the stormtroopers while trying to get the right exposure for Darth Vader. Now, there's different ways you could do this, whereas you could do different shots and then composite it all together. But for this, I want to try and get as much of it in camera as I can. Just one, because we're on a limited time. I don't want to take up all of your guys' time watching this video. And 2, we're already going to be doing a lot of post-processing, so I don't want to overdo it by doing a lot of overly heavy compositing and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get this figured out. And let's see if I can get the camera here a little bit better for you guys. I would attach it to the top of the camera, but right now you'd be looking at the back of my key light, and I want to be able to make sure you guys can see as much as possible. Now, hopefully my hand, because I am going to hold some of this in position, but hopefully you guys can still see what's going on. So right now I just need to get the camera completely set up here. Get the framing just right. Move these guys back just a little. Okay, right now I'm just doing a test shot. And we're just testing to make sure, like I said a moment ago, because of the stormtroopers, we got to make sure that we don't get them blown out. So, should be okay with that. Okay, so right now I just want to double check. Took a couple shots here. There is going to be a little bit of compositing two together just because of the depth difference here. If this guy's in focus, Darth is a little bit out of focus, so we will have to combine those, but it should be a pretty quick and easy combination. Okay, so we got that. Let me turn these off here. And see here if I can show you here. So we have a couple different shots. Here Darth Vader's a little bit more in focus. As we go back, the stormtroopers become more in focus. So I think we're good there. So let's go ahead and get everything shut off, and we'll switch back over to the computer and get to processing. Okay, so we're back at the computer, and what we're going to go ahead and do is get everything ready. And let's switch this over so you guys can see what I'm seeing. Let's pull up the memory card here. Just cycling through those so we can kind of see. Now you notice there's a slight shift with what's going on in the camera. That was just because of focusing on different areas. We should still be good. Yeah. So let's open up these three here. If you guys remember from previous weeks, when I'm shooting, what I do is I tend to, I always shoot in RAW. That way I get as much information and data as possible in the image. And what I like to do is open it up in Adobe Camera RAW. That way I can process everything. It uses the same engine as Lightroom and everything. So what we do is just go in and make all the edits and everything like that. And one of the things again that we'll want to make sure is keeping track of our histogram and getting the right exposure for the stormtroopers, making sure that they're not out of focus or anything. It looks like I may have opened up the wrong images here, so let's go through and get everything set up. And close this and try opening these back up here. So we definitely want this one. Let's go with these two here. That gives our front stormtrooper where he's in focus, and Darth Vader's in focus as well. And by default, this middle stormtrooper, depth-wise, will be a little bit more in focus. It's not completely sharp, but it'll still work. So what we'll want to do is adjust we don't want to blow them out, which can be a little bit tricky because you want to still get everything looking just right. So if I came all the way over, you can see that it will blow them out and everything. So we want to make sure we don't go up too high. We still want to make sure that there's a little bit of color in the whites and it's not just a pure bright white. It'll just help with making sure that there's a nice range of color and everything. Bring up the blacks just a little bit. Now for this, if you remember last week, what I showed is that if you select both images, you can come up and do a sync settings, and what happens with that is it will copy all the settings in the image that we just processed and carry it over. Now we're going to go ahead and start with that because that second stormtrooper is a little bit more in focus in this second image. So we want to have him exposed the same as this stormtrooper is. And then we're going to have to edit it just a little bit more for Darth Vader on the second image. So we're going to go sync settings and make sure everything looks good there. And now when we come over to this next image, both stormtroopers are going to wind up having the same kind of tonality and everything, and it'll just look better once we get it finally added. And actually Darth looks like he's okay. Let's see. We do have a lot of dust on him, so we'll go through and we'll fix that here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and open up both images. And very quickly what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this layer from this file. I'm going to just drag it over and add it, so that way they're both in one image. And I'm actually going to go ahead and close out the last image I just did. And I'm actually not interested in saving that one because I have both those files in this one image. So I am going to go ahead and save this. Save that out and we'll be able to start working on this. So with this, one of the things I'm going to want to do is actually bring the stormtrooper here in focus, bring him up front. And as you guys know, I use layer masks a lot. So I went ahead and applied that and hid everything, but right now I just turned off the layer mask. And what I want to do is try and get this in focus as much as possible, or aligned as much as possible. So I'm going to set that to difference and just try and slide that over and get it to be right about where it would have been. Just a little bit of nudging around there, and that should be good. Normal, and we will turn that layer mask back on. And with that, what we're going to do is paint back in. Actually, I think the arm looks a little bit better on this other one. Okay, and then we'll quickly look at that, see if that looks okay. Everything seems to look fine. I'm going to create a new layer. Let's just call it dust removal. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can remove dust. For this, I'm going to just go in and use the spot healing brush. And it's just one way to do it. We've covered using the spot healing brush before. You just got to be careful that as you're doing it, that you're paying attention to what it's actually copying, because it can give the wrong, it can pull from the wrong area and everything. So we're just going to come in and clean this up a bit. We're not going to go in and clean all of it up. Just some really noticeable parts. And you'll see a little bit later on why we're not going to focus on getting it all clear, because we're going to be adding some special effects in and stuff like that, and that's going to be more of a draw of attention, so we don't have to focus too much on getting that perfectly sharp. Now, if this was going to be a print that was going to be given to somebody as maybe a gift, or even say you're participating in a showing of toy photography and stuff, I would definitely spend a lot more time on getting the dust removal and everything taken out. Also, if there was a lot more time beforehand, I would have gone through with a dust aerosol can, like one of these, and really gotten the dust off before we took the photo and everything. You know, and also I probably would have gone in and done a lot more focus steps and done a composite using the layer stacking or focus stacking method. So everything looks like it's okay here. Now, some of you watching may notice that it's actually not the lightsaber hilt that came with this Darth Vader. I just kind of like the chrome one a little bit more. This one is actually the hilt from the Darth Maul LEGO figure. So let's see. Now, if you notice, let me zoom in here so you guys can see. We could go in and really just get all of this dust taken care of. And as you can see, we've already removed quite a bit. And we should be okay with that for this. And what we're going to do is actually darken in some areas. And I'm going to do that just by adding in a new layer. And if I take this and I'll just call it darken gradient. Now what I'm going to do is actually use the gradient tool, and I'm going to use a gray. Actually, I think the one I have will work. So if I come in and I just kind of create gradient layer coming in. And right now I have it set like that so I can actually see the area that I'm adding in the gradient. And then I'm going to just set this to multiply. And as you can see, it starts to darken it out a little bit more. So then I can just keep going if I need to. Now down here, because of the Lego stand that we're using, I'm going to create one more layer. Now I could either crop that out, or I can just mask it and or cover it up. So I'm going to actually cover it up so we maintain a lot more of the images we were starting off with. So again, just come in with a gradient. I set that to multiply. Okay. So now in here, what we're going to do is we're going to start on Vader's lightsaber. Now, if you're photographing anything Star Wars related, a lot of people think that you have to start off with the actual color. If you watch the Star Wars movies or anything like that, what a lot of people tend to forget is the blade on all of them is actually white. It's a kind of a color glow coming off of it that provides or signals what the color of the lightsaber is. So for this, I did go ahead and use the red lightsaber. So I'm going to just go in and mask out, or not mask, select the lightsaber portion. I'm just doing that using the lasso tool. And on a new layer, let's call this Vader lightsaber. Obvious choice. And what I'm going to do is select white for my color, just by hitting the D key. And if I hit X, it'll swap out the foreground to the background, and it'll bring white to the front. I'm going to hold down an Option and delete, and that just puts the lightsaber, or the white, there. Now for my stuff, I do have some layer styles, and if you look here, I don't know if it will show up too much for you guys. I have a green saber, I have a light violet saber, blue saber. If I just click on this, it automatically applies like a blue glow around the lightsaber. So what I can do is I just bring up the layer effects, and I'm going to actually change that from blue to a red. Now the lightsabers aren't hard lined like this, so I'm actually going to come in and do a bluer Gaussian. And with that, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I don't go too far, like that, but that I do have more of a soft edge. So if we do that, hit OK. And one other thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to apply a layer mask to this layer as well. And let me pull back up the settings here. And right here I want layer mask hides effects. Now some of you might be asking why it's only showing the outer glow here, because when you normally create a new layer, let me come down here and show you, like with layer 1, if I were to apply a layer style, I can add in a whole bunch of other effects and everything like that. So right now, we're just going to maintain this. And what we did is, if you double check, let me show you again. Layer mask hides the effect. What happens is, if I come in and I start painting on the layer mask, it's going to actually hide this behind that stormtrooper's. It's going to give the appearance that's hiding behind the stormtrooper's helmet, which we kind of want. We don't want it looking like it's all of a sudden his lightsaber's in front of the lightsaber stormtrooper's helmet. I'm just going to come in and paint around there. We don't want a hard line again, just because it won't look realistic. But also what we want to do is we want to make sure that it looks realistic. We don't want it to look cookie cutter or anything like that. So we just add that in, just get it as finessed as we want. Just say like that. Now what I'll do is sometimes I'll mess around and adjust the glow a little bit. And I have it set to hard light. If I have it set to like just normal, sometimes it'll look right. If you have it on a soft light, it's not as noticeable. You really want that red to be vibrant on there. So we just add that. And we can adjust the sizing. I like to make it not too small, but not overpowering at the same time. So I'll just make sure that's right in where I want it. And what I'm going to do is actually make sure I'm using the same color. So I'm just going to copy out the color code there. And we're going to add a new layer. And we're going to call this Vader Helmet Reflection. And we're going to change this to a hard light as well for right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to make sure that I am painting with the same color red. So since I copied that from the outer glow, I'm going to just come in here and paste that number in, and it's going to give me the same red. And what I'm going to do is get a good sized brush that's soft. We're just going to kind of come in right now. Let's see. So there we have that. I have it set for hard light. Obviously we want to bring that down. And I'm going to go in with the layer mask again. Again, I use the layer mask, if you guys haven't watched any of the other episodes, is it helps be non-destructive. So if I come in, if I were to use an eraser tool, and I came in and I did that, and I was like, oh, I didn't want all that gone, I'd actually have to go back in, either hit undo, or recreate the layer. But since I'm using a layer mask, I can just repaint back in the area that was hidden or covered up. So we're actually going to come in and hide out the areas that we don't need. And one of the things that you'll have to keep in mind is it's not going to be a flat overlay. Vader's mask has all sorts of different angles and parts that stick out farther. So it has like the side piece here. You wouldn't want the light that's here to be the same amount that's behind the helmet. So if we just kind of come in and zoom in here. So now I'm going to use a smaller brush. Since I painted over that area or hit it, I'm actually going to expose it back in. Drop the opacity down just a little bit more. We don't want it overbearing or too bright, because then it will look like the lightsaber's just right up against his helmet. And I don't think any Jedi or Sith Master would have a lightsaber that close to their face. I mean, these things, you know, obviously are able to cut through steel. They would be pretty hot. So just come in, I'm going to add in. Just add it in slowly wherever you think it's going to look kind of good. But make sure you're adding it in where you want. Hey guys, sorry about that. I don't know how much you heard. I apologize for not getting that microphone over. Man. So hopefully you guys caught anything I was just saying. I'm sorry, it's one of those things about going live, I guess. Okay, so just to recap, what we're doing is adding in a gradient or red overlay that's going to be coming off of the Vader's lightsaber. We don't want it to be too overpowering, so we're just going in, we masked it out, and what we're doing is painting back in the areas that we want visible. We want to be in control of what is showing versus stuff that is hidden. Now there's different ways you could actually do this. I've seen people where they put like an LED light right at the end or maybe in the bottom of the hilt. I don't like to destroy the Legos or anything like that, and I don't want to go out and spend a lot of money on all sorts of LED lights and stuff like that just for this one shot. And that what happens though is it doesn't always give a, especially if you put the LED light at the top of the lightsaber, it's not going to accurately show because the light's going to dissipate before it gets to the hilt. And so what I just do is I go in myself and I add in those the glow effect and everything, and just add it in where I think it should be. But you'll want to have some kind of base understanding of how light wraps around objects and everything like that. So I think that looks okay. We're going to pull that up just a bit. Okay. Maybe just a bit more. Okay. So there's that, and then a lot of times what I'll do for blaster fire and stuff like that is create a new layer, and if I have a right kind of brush selected, make sure it's kind of soft, or else you'd have to just go in and do a Gaussian blur later, and I just paint. But what I'll usually do again is I'll use white and just kind of get what I'm thinking will work. And we're going to apply a layer style again, and let's say that works there. And I'm actually going to come in, I'm going to distort this just a little bit. So I'm using the, I just hit transform, and I'm clicking on this little icon up in the top bar, which is the it switches between the free transform and the warp mode. By doing that, what happens is I can come in and I can grab this section and pull it over, grab this section and pull it over, and just really kind of get that effect that I want. And what I'm looking for is more of a snub nose at the front with it tailing off towards the back. Gives it kind of a sense of motion. So kind of like that. And let's call this layer blaster fire. And we're gonna just copy this layer a couple of times. I'm just hitting Command J, and it's just copying that out, so I have about 3 of them. And let's put these guys around like this. Now I'm going to select the first one, and I'm actually going to distort it again because it's coming from off camera. You know, the stormtroopers are maybe running towards the fight. And so I'm going to just angle that, get the right dimension that I want. And then I'm going to select this other one, do the same thing. But keeping in mind that if it's, say this is coming from one person, you don't want them all looking identical. So if I came in and I just duplicated this one and I move this up all of a sudden, it's going to seem a little bit out of place. The shots aren't going to also be on the same plane of focus, so you're going to have different areas and stuff like that. So we're going to take that out, just get rid of that layer. Come in, we're going to edit this one. Now if I wanted, I could convert this to a smart object That way I could go in a little bit later, and if I didn't like how it looked, I could edit it. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let's remove that. We're going to convert this first to a smart object, and then we're going to apply the layer style. Okay, so now as I'm going through and I'm doing that, so if we do that there, and actually let me delete this one here. I'll show you part of the reason why I use the layer smart object. I'm going to duplicate the one that is a smart object and move this over. And like we just talked about, you want to make sure it doesn't look the exact same, but if I come in, I hit Command T, it remembers where all the points are. So I can actually go in and manually tweak that a little bit more. Let me try that off. Okay, this one here, I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit. So right now I'm going to take those three and put them into their own group. I just did that by hitting Command G. And then I'm going to duplicate that one once. And I'm going to, now this is a spot where I can't use, this part's going to be destructive. I'm going to merge those layers. And what's going to happen then is I'm going to go in, filter, blur, and I'm going to use a radial blur. This might seem odd, but rather than it be the radial, what I want to do is I actually want to use zoom. So I'm going to move that right about in there. Hit OK. It's going to give just a little bit of motion, or a sense of motion in there. And let's see. Actually, what we're going to do is delete this info. So I kind of like how this one trails. And I'm just applying the layer style again to that one, but I want to put it behind the blaster fire, so that way it has that kind of appearance. Shrink it down. We're going to duplicate that, bring it down, I'm going to rotate it. Okay, so let's actually see about bringing this tail, which is the far left one, and that blaster bolt, we'll bring it right about here. Let's see if we can get this to look right. So I'm going to come in, open up, I do have my own layer library of overlays that I use. And for this, I want some sparks. Let's see. Put that in there. And these are just overlays that I found over time, and I just add them in and I have them ready to go whenever I need it. So if we just do that. And again, I'm just setting the blend mode to screen, and that knocks out all of the black. I do need to, there we go. Let's see. I just want to make sure we get this going exactly the way we want. Yeah, that's going to be too much there. Let's bring this in. I usually use this one quite a bit in a lot of my photos. It's one of my favorites. You can get your own streaks like this if you go out and you photograph like campfires or anything like that. You just kind of hit the log, it just kind of sends embers up. Let's see if we can get this angle just the way we want. Don't want it too big here. Okay. I'm going to darken it just a bit. Okay. That's what it looks like there so far. And we're going to mask out some of this just because we don't want all of it visible. Okay. And let's add in, see how this looks. Just put that in. And I'm thinking that this blaster bolt here might be a little bit too distracting, so let's go in and move that. And I should organize this a little bit better. Let's move this up. Right now I'm just grouping each of these and labeling them so I can find them better later. And just so I know that those are the blaster bolts, I'm going to select them and color them so they're all the same. So now let's see, is that better? There we go. They're slightly mixed around. So let's bring that, rotate it just a bit. Okay. Let's see. I want to see what happens if we add in this. You never know unless you actually try it out to see how it's going to look. And bring down. That might not be. Bring that down. Maybe right there. Okay, just gives a little bit of dimension, a little bit more color in there. And let's see. Like I said before, I use this one layer overlay quite a bit. It's this Ember one. So I'm going to make it look like there's a big battle in front of these guys that they're running into again. I'm going to set this to screen again. Just the darkness. Let's get that sized right about where we want it. Okay. Let's see if we add this in here. Do some adjustments. Okay, let's see. Let's shrink that down just a bit more. Okay. By doing this, maybe it will give the appearance that something kind of exploded in front of them or just off to the side as they're running. And let's see if we add in this overlay. It might be a little bit too much. Okay. Let's do a Gaussian blur on there. And we're going to go in and hide parts of it. Wait for that to finish, and then layer mask. And I'll get that off right there. So right now we're just going in, and I know we're adding in a lot of overlays and everything like that. But in a battle, you want, especially in a photo, you want to create that sense of commotion and everything. So let's add in just a little bit of smoke down here. Let's try that again. Now, if you remember, we talked about before about smoke. You can manipulate that quite a bit without it losing a smoke-like feel. But it is possible, so you want to make sure that you don't over adjust or distort the smoke, because it can actually still look a little bit odd. Just apply that in there. We don't want too much visible, just kind of coming right across the bottom of the image here. Again, we're going to set that to screen. Let's darken it just a little bit as well. Okay. Now for these, I'm going to jump back down to this spark layer that we added in. And for this, I'm actually going to go up to my filter blur gallery. And let's try that with the tilt shift. Because we want those sparks, we don't want everything just being the same focus level. As you can see with like the Stormtrooper and Darth Vader, there's different levels of focus. And so for the sparks here, because it's going through them, or through the area that they occupy, we want to have different items in focus versus not. So we want the area up close. I could have also probably used a field blur with this. What we're going to do is adjust this. So it's a little bit more in focus up front. Just kind of blur all that out. And we're going to go ahead and say OK. Now, again, because this is a smart object, if we want to, we could go back in and readjust that later if it wasn't quite the level that we wanted. So give it just a moment. And let's blur some of it, or remove some of it. We don't want too much. Okay, and with these sparks up front, I want to blur those just a little bit, because it's going to be in front of the Stormtrooper, so it would be out of focus a little bit as well. Not too much there. Okay. So now, let's see if this will work. I have some lens flare overlays that I'll use at times. Now, overlays can be overdone and everything, especially lens flares and stuff like that. If you just look at J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, just full of lens flares everywhere, and some people found it a little bit too much. But because we're adding in purposely a lot of special effects in this one, I know it's a little bit heavy, but just showing how we might go through and add those in. We'll set that to screen. Now this one here, what I'm hoping is that it gives the appearance that that light is breaking right behind the stormtrooper's helmet. And because this overlay has a hard edge, I'll need to soften that out. Just kind of find the right spot for that. So let's see what happens if we flip that around. Get more of that lens flare going to the right rather than to the left. Okay, that kind of works. Now I do have like a blue lens flare. Let's see what happens if we add this in. And take a couple of those. And on this one, let's mask out part of this. Okay. Have all this going on. Let's see. I think not that one. Might work a little bit better without. Okay, let's go ahead and actually remove some of those lens flares we just did. And we're going to, because we're going to add another one in, I'm going to add a lens flare right across the bottom here. Kind of coming off where that explosion was. I'm going to shorten up that one just a bit. Okay, so I think what we've done is enough to get that all worked out and everything. So hopefully, Christopher, if you're watching, hopefully this gives you an understanding of how we would go in and manipulate and add in a lightsaber effect or blaster fires and stuff like that, and even lens flares. Again, I know that this image is a little bit over heavily done with some of the overlays, but I wanted to be able to show how you can add those in and kind of get the effect that you want. With it being, again, kind of a battle simulation, we want kind of a chaotic feel and everything. So what we can do is, if we wanted, we could go in and tidy it up a little bit more and everything. Show this final to you guys again. And, you know, just really look at how the images or everything interacts with each other. So if we wanted, possibly we could go in and give a little bit of a blue glow from the blaster bolts coming off. You kind of get that effect going on with the helmets itself, but maybe you want to show a little bit with Vader right there, maybe a little bit off of his arm and everything. So what I'm hoping is that this will give you guys a sense of what you can do with your images. And what I would love is for you guys to share your creations. You know, if you want to try doing a Star Wars, whatever figure you want, just share with us, tag it either on Facebook or Instagram with BricksDaily Challenge, hashtag BricksDaily Challenge, or with hashtag BricksDaily, and we just want to see what you guys are creating as well. Hopefully this answers your questions. If there's anything that you guys want to see in any of your in any of our future videos, please let us know, just like Christopher did, and we'll do our best to get your questions answered in a future video and everything. Please like us, hit the subscribe button and the bell note so you can be notified when new videos are uploaded. We will be starting to roll out some new tutorials on how to do certain effects individually rather than just in a live session. That way we can focus really in on just that one aspect of the creation and everything like that. Also head over to BricksDaily.com to see what we have. If you guys haven't seen, we have a great weekly feature where we highlight toy photographers from around the world. And these are guys and girls who are just creating really amazing work. They're taking the toys that they love and they're bringing them into our world and providing a sense of amazing wonder. I don't know how to best describe it. Some of these people are just amazingly talented, and so head over and you can take a look. It's our Under the Macro feature, and also if you want to be featured, let us know. Reach out to us on Facebook or however you want to reach out to us. Let us know and we'll feature you. We want to share the toy photography that's happening everywhere, all around the world and stuff. So like us on Facebook, check us out on BricksDaily.com, and we hope to be able to see you guys soon. We'll leave you with this image, and again, please like the video, leave us a comment, and let us know what we can do to help you out with your toy photography.